Let's drop the green flag on this episode of the Talent Tank Podcast with your host, Wyatt Pemberton, bringing you the best, fastest, most knowledgeable personalities in ULTRA4 and off-road racing.
This episode brought to you by Custom Splice Off-Road Recovery Gear. All right, here we go. Back to the Talent Tank. This is our first big episode back after just an amazing King of the Hammer season. What a great race we just had back at the beginning of February. Here we are in March, and sitting down on episode 1 back, none other than our new king, Josh Blyler. How you doing?
How's it going, Wyatt? I'm doing good.
So we've got Josh sitting in his shop, pile of pro chassis behind him. Gosh, congratulations. If I can't get that off my chest enough, to be a new Crown King, to be a new name on top of the box, how's that feel?
It's pretty surreal. I don't know that it's fully sunk in or if it ever will. This was completely a dream that I never expected. It was that far-fetched. I never even really dreamt for it because I didn't think it could be pulled off. So really it's awesome. It's super ecstatic that we did it. It's just amazing. I love it. It's cool. I'm super honored to be included in that list of King names. That sticks forever.
You crack me up because I know, just putting you on the spot, and I've been told, and I can tell, you're a very humble guy. And so when I'm putting you on the spot to talk about yourself, I see you're kind of like, oh man, I don't know if I've, how to talk about myself this way, I'm not doing cartwheels. Yeah, I'm the new king, but yeah, dude, congrats.
Thank you.
After the race ended and, you're holding the scepter and the race is over, I started getting text messages and calls and people just saying, who's this Josh Blyler? Or you need to interview Josh Blyler. We want to know who this guy is. There's this whole entire fandom around King of the Hammers and ULTRA4 Racing. And they're just like, who are you? And I'm sitting back going, well, I kind of know who you are. I've seen your name floating in the points race a little bit, but holy cow, you might be the best ULTRA4 driver today. Not just because of King of the Hammers recently, but today. And that seems like a crazy claim, right, Josh?
Yeah, I don't know that I'd claim that, but if you want to claim it, I'll take it.
Well, I'm going to give it to you and let me just rattle off some stats for you. So you got your car in 2016. Your dad got his in 2017. We'll talk about your dad here in a little bit, Rusty. But okay. You got your car in 2016. You raced the East Series in 2016. So 2017 was your first year out at King of the Hammers.
Yes. Yep.
Racing at King of the Hammers. In 2017, you finished the National Points Series in 4th. In 2018, you finished the National Points Series in 2nd. And in 2019, which is this past fall, you were number 1.
Mm-hmm.
You've raced King of the Hammers 4 years, 17, 18, 19, 20. In 17, your first year ever racing, this is all 4,400. You finished 6th. You finished 4th in 2018. 2019, you still finished, but it was only 11th. I mean,
right.
And then you came back, a few weeks ago and you won on the box. You're number 1. And that's 4 races, 4 finishes, 1 barely outside the top 10 at King of the Hammers. And then in the points race, you finished 4, 2, and 1 in the last 3 years. I would say that your stats, I know you're a humble guy, but your stats, yeah, man, you're legit.
We try to be consistent. A lot of people don't believe me when I say the King of the Hammers deal. All I ever wanted to do was finish that race one time. That's all I wanted to do. We went out to check out that race in 2005, really had no idea what it was other than the name. I knew the name King of the Hammers, but we showed up in the lake bed and started looking around and I'm going, this is awesome. I got to do this. This is cool. The whole time my dad's going, kid, you're nuts. This is crazy. This is out of our league. And I said, no, we're going to do it. So we did it. And really all I wanted to do was finish that race. We finished it. And then I thought, well, maybe putting this thing on the box, just sometime a podium finish, that would be pretty cool. Still seemed pretty unreasonable, but I thought it'd be cool to shoot for it. To shoot for a win, never did I dream that we could pull it off.
Well, I know as we talk, I'm going to jump us way, way ahead of where we're at in the conversation, but you going and racing off-road and going and getting a 4,400 car wasn't outside the realm of a reality or just a crazy harebrained idea. You are from a long line of racers, and you are been a heavy and fast off-road racer around the Line Mountain Series there in PA.
Yes, I wouldn't say I'm from a long line of racers as far as the bloodline goes. Really, my dad was kind of the first one to get into it. But locally here, racing's been part of the tradition forever. The Line Mountain Series brings that to the table, and it is a very off-road Jeep racing's big here.
And so I was talking to one of your friends, and, he's one of my friends too. And I said, what makes this guy so fast? And he goes, I don't even like I'm not even going to name who this is. He goes, I don't even like pre-running with him because he's so fast in the trees. It carries over to what we saw at King of the Hammers, that you become so fast in the rocks that you walk away from everybody. And you're not at a sprint. You're just running your pace. And after many, many years of practicing and being good at Line Mountain, you just have that innate ability.
It's been a big evolution. Go back to my Line Mountain days. That race evolved very much like King of the Hammers. It used to be a attrition race. It was survival of the fittest. Whoever could make it to the finish line had a really good chance of winning the race. As it evolved over the years, it evolved into a sprint race. There would be 20 people that have a strong contention of winning that race every single start, and you had to sprint and earn it. You inherently just got fast in the trees because if you wanted to win, you needed to figure out how to dodge trees and make it work. When we roll over to the rocks, I don't know that so much helped me in the rocks. I had a very good teacher. Eric Miller took me under his wing, and before I went out to the King of the Hammers pre-running with him, I'd never been in real rocks, what I'd call real rocks. I don't know that you can pick a better trainer than Eric Miller. I mean, he's arguably one of the best, most finesseful people in the rocks I've ever been around. So to have him show me the ropes, I was pretty fortunate.
Yeah, he's a student of the course. He's always studying, always learning, and then always trying to evolve it. I really respect that guy a lot.
Yeah, for sure. I'll never forget the first pre-run trip we had out there. I had my 4400 car, and we left there. We went from Reno to Johnson Valley to pre-run. His car was pretty shot from the Reno race, so he went everywhere in his Razor. We did every one of those rock trails in my 4400 car and his Razor. And at the end of every day, I'd just be shaking my head because I was struggling. I was learning and trying to figure it out. And here this guy did it in a golf cart, and I was getting my ass kicked in a 4400 car.
Right. How has things changed since a few weeks ago? Has your phone been just ringing off the hook? I know you're not a big sponsor guy, meaning I think my right way to preface this is you're not looking for sponsors in the sense that you have a business, and we're going to talk about your business here in a little bit, BigB, but you're really have full dedication to your empire, to BigB, to your business, and to all the families that you employ. And so sponsorship isn't necessarily something that plays well into what your goals are for your recreation.
This racing thing for us is a way over the top serious hobby. We take it probably entirely too seriously, but it's not how we make our living, and it's never how I intend to make a living. BigB is what we do for a living. It's where we go to work. The race cars and the race shop is where we go for fun. I was also very, very keen on that getting into this. People told me, hey, look, if you want sponsors, this is the route you go. Here's how you do it. You want to present yourself like this. And it always turned into, it looked like more of a job than a hobby. The one person told me, the most expensive parts are the sponsored parts. And I think they're right. The amount of time you need to invest into that to keep your sponsors happy, for me, it's just not worth it. It would take away from my everyday business, running BigB and keeping everything going here. It would struggle. We do this for fun. And the moment it becomes a job, I always said we're quitting. We have enough jobs. So
going to hang it up.
Yeah, the phone's been ringing. I've had tremendous amount of opportunities. Super grateful for all of them, but it's just not a fit for us. We're doing this for us. We're not doing it for the fame or the sponsors or anything like that. We're doing it for us and the team and the group of people that follows us around is why we're doing this.
And that's what I absolutely love about your story is you're some rec wheelers, some rec racers that are very good at it. And we're like, we're here to do this. As soon as it becomes not this, we're going to hang it up. Let's devolve back. Let's jump back to who Josh is and kind of get back into where you're at, man. You live in, help me pronounce the name of this. Is it Klingerstown?
Nailed it. Perfect.
Klingerstown,
right. Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. And you race out of Pennsylvania and you just won a race in California. It's always something else, like when like Miller does it, or any of the guys that drive from that side of the country, like Chris May from South Carolina. It's like, God, that's the 3 days, 4 days on the road to get out west. Y'all got some commitment.
It's an adventure in itself, really.
No, it really is. But man, Klingerstown, I mean, what is there? There's 120 people live in Klingerstown, small little burg.
I don't know what the population is exactly, but it's not many. I mean, there's no red lights, no stop signs. We don't have a police station. We have 2 fire companies, 2 bars, a couple churches. There's not a whole lot going on here, but I wouldn't go anywhere else. I love it here.
Firemen's parade?
Oh, yeah. We got the firemen's parades and carnivals. You got to do that every year. You know, the local one here, the Pittman Fire Company, they do a parade. It's literally front to back is a quarter mile, half mile at most. And it's really just a tractor parade. You know, everybody gets their old tractors out and we cruise them up and down the street. But yeah, that's about it.
Now, I saw something about this. There's a fishing rodeo involved with that. Tell me, what's a fishing rodeo?
A lot of kids' things. They go to a trout stream. You know, a lot of times the local fire companies or the sportsman clubs will stock a stream. Normally it's kids, 16 and under, 18 and under, and you'll do a fish rodeo, and so you can catch the biggest fish or the majority of the biggest fish.
That's as simple as it is. Like I said, I tried to do my background on stuff, and that's the first time I've come across a fish rodeo in writing, and I was like, okay, I've got to ask Josh what exactly this is.
We don't saddle them up and take them for a ride or anything like that.
No, I didn't. Yeah, right. I figured it was maybe like a roundup, like you're herding them in a creek or something, or at least a minimum a kiddie pool. You grew up around there, though, right?
Yes. Born and raised in this valley. Where I'm from, we called it Klingerstown Valley. We live between valleys. All the mountains run east and west, and between the mountain ridges, it's only a couple miles, so we've got different valleys. So I've been born and raised in the Klingerstown Valley, not always on this property where I'm at right now. Till 3rd grade, I lived about 6 to 8 miles away from here. When my parents bought this business, moved to here, and really lived in an old farmhouse here on this farm. This farm is back 4 generations now, although it hasn't been farmed for at least the last 2. It's been a manufacturing facility since, but still the farm. We're actually sitting in the bottom of the barn right now. This very barn I'm standing in right now is the same place I kept my pony when I was a kid and just got transformed to a race shop. So it's still at the same place.
Now it keeps several thousand ponies. I love it. Right. All right. So your parents, right? Your parents still together. Rusty, who we know from racing. What's your mom's name?
Sherry.
Yep. Rusty and Sherry. And she's a saint, right? She's dealing with you too.
Absolutely.
And then you've got a brother, Skip. Is that right?
Yep. Skip. And I have a sister, Brittany.
I mean, let's talk about your mom for a second. Total saint, taking care of you guys. How does she deal with all you guys racing and all your years and years of racing?
Man, I don't know. You guys know Dad, Rusty, a little bit. I always consider him the grown man that's still stuck at 16. He refuses to grow up. I don't know how he does it. He's old and has done some incredible things, but he just never quits. He's always on the rev limiter and it's go, go, go. And don't get me wrong, a lot of guys look at what Dad and I are doing right now and think, man, these guys, it had to be great growing up with Rusty. And I bet it was all rainbows and unicorns. And let me tell you, man, it wasn't. He spent a fair amount of time with his foot up my ass. I needed it. I deserved every bit of it. And he straightened me up and did a pretty good job, I guess. And then my mom, on the flip side, she is the complete opposite. She is the sweetest lady you will ever meet. She will do absolutely anything for anybody. She's one of those, she's too nice kind of girls. Some people can take advantage of her, but why her and my father ever worked, I have no idea, because I don't think you can get 2 more opposite people. But yeah, love Mom. She's the greatest in the world.
I'm literally envisioning like Pennsylvania, this nice small little town, and I bet your mom is a hell of a cook. That's what I'm imagining right now. like
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And you look well fed too. You don't look like you probably ever missed.
Oh yeah. This fat kid didn't miss many meals, man.
Same here. So yeah, so you talked about Rusty being hard on you, but man, today in memories looking back, I mean, you guys have and share some amazing bonding experiences.
Oh, we've done some absolutely incredible stuff, man. We were very big hunters before we got into the racing as heavy as we are now. So we've been all over the country hunting together. He's actually finished his Grand Slam of North American Animals, which is one of every big game animal in the country, which is just a huge feat in itself.
Wow.
In the hunting world, that's like winning King of the Hammers. It's pretty cool. So, he's done that. And what a lot of people don't know is is where they started. My mom and dad started at absolutely nothing. When they bought this business, there was 5 people, and it was a stretch, man. Things were tight. I got to see it growing up. Things were nowhere near like they are today, and they've earned every cent they've ever made and every experience they've gained. So I'm just super proud of them guys, and it's really cool to see what they've done.
On that line, I can't wait to talk about BigB and that, your manufacturing business, because we're going to get there. I find building empires highly insightful, and the guys and the families behind them highly insightful. So we're going to get there. But you end up you went to local county, was it Tri-County School, Tri-County High School? What's it called?
Tri-Valley.
Okay.
Yep.
So which you laid into me on the Klingerstown Valley. What are the other 2 valleys?
So you got Tri-Valley, the Higgins Valley, and man, I should know this. Hoodley Valley. Hoodley? Yeah, that sounds right. We'll go with that.
We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Where's your wife Lori from? Is she from local, or you find her and pull her back into Klingerstown?
I actually found her in college. She's from Ephrata, about 2 hours from here. If it wasn't for college, I'd have never met her. But yeah, that's where I found her.
What did you go to college for?
Computer drafting, mechanical drafting.
Do you use much of that today?
The company does. I do not,
right?
Unfortunately. And it was a stepping stone. When I went to college for drafting, there wasn't a single computer at BigB, which looking back on it, I'm not sure how that ever happened, but I know we're not the only people that can tell that story. Went to college, learned drafting. Literally when I graduated high school, I had 0 computer experience. The computers were just coming onto the scene. And in high school, when I was graduating and I was in the VOTech program, had 0 interest in any of that. So I knew nothing about computers. Left high school, went to York Tech, learned computer-aided drafting, brought it back to BigB. We bought a computer and started doing our own drafting here and making programs to send. At that time, we didn't have any lasers to the burn table and stuff like that. So it was really a stepping stone and got that program going at BigB and helped us move it along.
And then now you and Lori have 3 daughters, 3 amazing daughters.
Yep, 3 daughters, Lily, Maddie, and Hannah. Couldn't be more blessed.
And you're completely outnumbered in the house. Completely, right?
Oh, yeah. Horribly.
Like,
yeah.
Not a chance.
No, and it's really good right now because all 3 of them love each other. And, the oldest is 13 and the youngest is 9. So they're at the age yet where, boys aren't a thing and everybody loves each other. But, but that 16, 18-year-old thing, it's going to be great.
It's going to kick you in the butt. I have a daughter who's 9, and she's a piece of work now. She is hard to handle. There's no drama along those lines, but she's big into baking, so it's constant. And the whole missing a meal thing, like I could miss a meal and I'm going to make up for it in brownies or cookies, or it's just nonstop. She's constantly baking. It's
for sure. Yep.
This past weekend, she gives me a list to go to the grocery store and says, Daddy, I need you to go get the grocery store. Well, then I piddled around. I ran another errand, and I'm checking out at our grocery store. And as I'm pulling my wallet out, I pay and I put it in my pocket. You pull your cell phone out. I'm addicted to my cell phone. I look and there's a notification, and it's Parker Pemberton has put a fence around me, like a geo fence on my Find My Friends or whatever, so that it will notify her when I leave the address of the grocery store. And I'm like, what is this NSA crap? Like my daughter, my 9-year-old just set me up like the NSA. So I'm like, oh man, we're so in for it. And you're in for it too. I mean, you've got a couple there, a couple years ahead, but what are they into? I mean, you guys live on a farm, you've got horses, goats, cows. Are they into any of that? So
they're, as of now, none of them are showing any interest in the racing. The little one, I keep kind of looking at her because she's the wild child, man. She's making me lose my hair at an alarming rate. If any of them will do it, I think it would be her. But right now they're into their critters, man. They, and it's awesome, to be honest with you. They don't do anything on the iPads or the Xboxes or any of that stuff. And I couldn't be happier. They got a whole herd of goats and ponies, and cows and dogs and cats and chickens and white-tailed deer, and they've got a regular zoo up there, and it's really cool to see. Their priority is when they get home from school, they want to see their animals. So if you're at home, you'll see them run in one end of the house, rip their school clothes off, they get on their farm clothes, and out the other end of the house, and they beeline it to the barn. But it's really cool. They're interested in the local 4-H stuff, and they do some shows at the county fairs and stuff like that, and nothing super competitive, just fun and kids being kids and hanging out with other farm kids. And It's one of the reasons I would never leave this area. It's an amazing place to raise a family and raise kids.
And they're telling you stories about animals with names, and you're like, which animal is that?
Exactly. Yeah, they've all got names, and I think they have birthday parties for most of them, and it's really cool to see them that into it. And it also makes you feel really good. You know, we've got horses, and we don't ride as much as we'd like to. It's certainly not as much as they'd like to. But if it's a weekend and it's a nice day, you know, they're just hounding you and pounding on you. Let's go riding. Let's go riding. Let's go riding. And it's just a good feeling that your kids want to do that kind of stuff, and it's awesome.
Man, I will tell you, that's the number one thing that I miss about living in suburban America today and growing up rural. Was I grew up so rural that I would ride my horse to my friend's house 2 miles away. That was it. What you didn't ride a bicycle down a gravel road. It just wasn't what you do in the rural America, you know, the flyover states here. So I'd ride a horse. And so I missed the ability to just walk out and be like, oh, I want to go ride today. Or I want to go clear my head today. Let's go get on the horse. And I can't do that today, but that's pretty cool that you guys and your girls are able to do that.
It's awesome. You know, you talked about riding around when you were a kid. When I was a kid growing up in this valley, we all had horses and ponies, and that was our mode of transportation until we could afford something with 4 wheels. You wouldn't think you'd get in trouble on a horse, but we did. I mean, we'd go out and pull stunts, and, you know, we'd be swimming with them and just doing stuff you shouldn't. We rode them. There was like 5 or 6 of us that had the brainy idea, we're going to ride them to school. So, you know, school from here is about a 20-minute car ride. So we saddled up one morning real early, and we left in the dark and rode our horses to school and tied them out back in the ag fields. And we got kicked out of school for that. And we had so much fun with our horses in this valley. And it's, like I said, I'm glad we're still here.
Yeah, those are good memories. Well, growing up on a farm, you have another, you know, hobby outside of racing. You're, as you said, when I asked you about the Firemen's deal, you guys have the parade, and you like antique tractors.
Yep. Yeah, so that's, I don't know if it's a bad habit or what it is exactly, but got into that at a very young age. I had a young friend of mine, Jesse Hepler, lives in the same valley as a dairy farm. You know, him and I started hanging out. He was a couple years older than me, so he had access to wheels, and I didn't. So him and I started palling around, and, you know, came to find out that in Josh Blyler family barn, there was some old engines. I didn't know what they were, but he did. So we drug them out, and him and I apart so much stuff that never run again. But it's where I got my mechanical abilities, I guess I'll say. You know, just wrenching and tearing on old junk and trying to make it go and make it run. And it's, you know, old mechanics are very simple mechanics, so it teaches you a lot of good lessons. So it's really where I got into the farm stuff. And yeah, we've been into that. We've got a bunch of hit-miss engines and old tractors and stuff like that. And it's just they're laying around doing their thing.
So for the people that don't know, and I do know some about these, tell the folks what a hit and miss engine is.
So a hit and miss engine is a, you know, early 1900s, just call it 1900 to 1930 at the latest. They were engines that you use around the farm or anywhere, really. Anywhere you needed a powered device.
They put them in washing machines?
Right. Washing machines, corn grinders, corn shellers, you know, stone mills to make your flour, an engine to run your water pump to pump water, anything that you needed moving parts for that you either didn't want to hand crank. You know, that was your options back then, either hand crank it or put a horse on it or something, but there was no electric switch to flip here. So anyway, a hit and miss engine is kind of what it says. It doesn't hit on every stroke. They're very efficient engines. They've got big flywheels, and they hold the exhaust valve open and freewheel when they're not under a load. When you put them under a load, they can hit every stroke. And so they call them hit and misses. You know, they hit on some cycles and they miss on others. And they're the simplest of simple mechanics you could ever come up with. But if you think about when they were made and the resources they had back then, it's pretty amazing that they even did it. But we're into that, and we've got a slew of them. My brother's into it. A bunch of my buddies are into it. And, you know, we get together a couple times a year. We drag them all out, and, you know, like we make chicken feed for the chickens at home and just completely useless. It's really an excuse to sit around, do nothing, and drink beer and have a good time, I guess. But we have fun with it.
Which is where I was going. Like, you'll do anything if you can hang out with your buddies and drink beer, right?
Pretty much. Yeah, you got it.
What is like your favorite models? I mean, the tractor models, or are you like the John Deeres, or are you into like the Maytags and the Dairy Maids, or?
So hit and misses, it's New Holland is my thing. I like New Hollands. It's they were built here locally in New Holland, Pennsylvania. It's about 2 hours from here. So that's kind of my hit and miss go-to. Full-size tractors, I don't really care. Farmall's, John Deere's, really any of them. And then the little tractors are the Pennsylvania Panzers. Those are the ticket.
And now, are those turquoise?
Those are the tantalizing turquoise ones. Yeah.
And that's kind of where the BigB Motorsports race team, that's where your car colors came from, right?
Yep, exactly. When I built the first car, it was actually Leah Miller that was up here, and we're trying to kind of come up with a color scheme for this thing. And, I wanted to be different. I didn't want to, it was already a yellow car with Eric, and there was red cars and green cars and blue cars. Everybody kind of had the normal colors all picked, and I wanted to have a color, but all the good ones were picked. So the first race or two that we ran it, we just did rust. It was a brown car, rust, all rat rod looking, and it looked really neat, but it didn't stand out at all. Especially when you got into the desert, it just disappeared. It was a brown turd. So Leah was here one time, and I'm like, we got to come up with a color for this. And there happened to be a Pennsylvania Panzer tractor sitting there. And so how about we go, as a joke, I said, let's go tantalizing turquoise, because that's the color of the Panzer tractor. And she looked at me and she said, that might work. And it kind of stuck. We stuck with the tantalizing turquoise, and everybody makes an ass out of me because of the name, but I think it looks good. And it's kind of my color now.
No, it does look good, and it's easily identifiable. Certainly on a big screen in Hammertown, people can look up and see this. They knew it was you.
Yeah.
So BigB Manufacturing, you guys are one of the larger employers in the area. You guys are welding manufacturer, job shop. If I heard right, did your grandfather start it, but then Rusty bought it from him in the early 2000s?
Yes, my grandfather started the company. At that time, it was strictly a farm, and my grandfather was still a farmer. He was farming this farm, but he was a mechanical guy, had a lot of mechanical ability, and started doing repair work for other farmers. And there's two things in this area: is farming and coal mining. So he started doing repairs for local farmers and coal miners, and it just kind of turned into more and more. And he was just him; he didn't have any employees at the time, but it just kind of grew into he was doing more of that and less farming. Ultimately, he just started growing the business. Started in a tiny little box shack thing with an old Bridgeport mill and a little buzz welder, and grew it from there. My dad got involved. Dad worked away from the company for a couple of years, came back to the company, got involved, started help build it. At the time, I think there was 5 or 6 employees. My grandfather that was just entirely too much. He was used to being a lone wolf, basically, doing his own thing. And, there also my dad is being a pain in the ass, wanting to go. They came to an agreement. Dad bought the place in 96. It was 5 or 6 employees. It was some tough times, man. He really strung it all out there, and failure wasn't an option. This was either going to work or his entire life was going down the tubes. So super, super cool the way he did it. And to be able to watch most of it go on has been awesome.
What year did you graduate high school? You had to graduate high school right around then, right?
I graduated in 98, so 2 years after my dad bought it. Yep.
There you go. And then you came back to the business after college, after York, and brought what you learned back. And between you and your dad, you guys have gone from that, couple guys in a little shack to where you guys are today.
Yeah, it's been quite the evolution, man. It's when I left, or I got out of high school in 98, went to college, just a two-year deal, came out of there in 2000, and came back to work full time. Prior to that, I had worked here. In high school, I wasn't involved in any sports or anything like that. If I wasn't at school, I had my ass kicked down into the shop and told get to work. So basically, I had a very good understanding of what was going on here and the daily operations. By no means was I running it or anything, but I wasn't completely new walking in here out of college. I knew the ropes. So came in here after college, did the drafting thing, kind of got that kicked off, and it just kept evolving. My brother got involved in 2005 to 2006 ish, and we've just been continually growing it and adding people and equipment and buildings, and it's been good. It's a nice steady climb in growth. There's never been a giant spurt where we just shot out of the ground. It's just really been since 96, just a kind of slow uphill grade, and just keep picking away at it, making it bigger.
I love the story. I love the fact that you're leveraging technology. And I have another key on that I want to key on here in a little bit about BigB and you guys leveraging technology, but that you've slowly grown. Let's talk about your products, what you guys make. You guys just a welding job shop. People bring in projects, but they tend to be very large stuff. Like one thing I know you guys have done work on is like Ferris wheels. That seems crazy when I see them like at the carnival or whatever, or out on a pier somewhere. But what was the most interesting thing you guys have built?
It's all interesting. That's kind of cool about this job we're into, or this world we're into, is it doesn't get real boring. We're a job shop, machine and fab. So, we do large weldments, big machining. Our forte has never been around the little stuff. We don't do good with little nuts and bolts size things. So big weldments, big machine parts, big castings, that just kind of fits our niche. And it's kind of a good little niche we've built around that fits us good. But the cool part about it is there's very little repetition. Sure, we're welding or machining every single day, but it's always different. And I think that's really what attracted me to it, because I don't have a super long attention span. I kind of get bored with things. So, if this was a production facility where it was the same exact thing every day, I don't know that I'd have made it. I'd have probably bailed and did something else. But, every job is different, and it has its own challenges and own quirks. And it's just very cool. And the range of people that you get to work for is really neat. We're not based on one person that we're working for or one company. We're kind of all over the place. And it's been a good model. It's helped grow, and I like it.
What I think is really cool about at least that style of work and that type of work is that you're not beholden to any single industry, or all your eggs aren't in one basket. Like, you're not fully into coal, or you're not fully into oil and gas production, which I'm down here on the Gulf Coast. Every weld shop in Houston is in the oil and gas world. And with what we've seen happen with oil and gas in the last couple of weeks, I mean, everyone's freaking out and flipping out. And it's like, well, if you were diverse, it's just hard to be diverse down here versus where you're at. You guys could have been into the shale plays and the gas world, but you didn't, and you've stayed diverse in the other things that you guys have going on. I think who would think to work on Ferris wheels? I mean, that's whatever comes through the door, right?
It's, to be honest with you, it's a project that many companies wouldn't take on just for the liability reasons. And, don't get me wrong, you got to do a good job in anything that you're doing, but when you're doing something like that, I mean, it's literally people's lives that are on the line. So you got to do it right, and you got to do a good job. And when you're done with it, you got to be fully willing. The way I always explain it to the guys is, when we're done, you got to be willing to put your kid on there and go. And if you're scratching your head at all, then I'm questioning it as well. So it's neat. I mean, we've done a couple Ferris wheel projects. We have a road crew that does traveling mechanical work. We've been all over the country. That's always fun. You get to go see a different part of the country, and it's usually 2-3 week stint trips, not very often. So you get to spend most of your time at home and go see another part of the country and see something cool and do that. So it's been fun.
Do you take any of the BigB employees with you guys out west for any of the races or to KOH?
Quite a few of them. Actually, throughout my whole life, really, it's kind of been the same group of people involved in my life the whole time from when I'm a kid. I told you about the guy that helped me drag tractors out of the top of the shed. We're still very good friends, and he was at Hammers this year. One of my old horse riding buddies, Mikey, is our pit crew guy. He's the lead man. He's the guy barking and screaming at everybody, and he does a really good job with that. My weld shop foreman is also my uncle, I guess. Yeah, uncle. And it's kind of weird because we're kind of the same age, even though he's my uncle. But he's a weld shop foreman here. He came with us to Hammers. His son and I are very tight. We're good friends, and he's been a great help. Caden is his name. And all the BigB guys, there's probably, out of the crew that was at Hammers this year, there was probably 8 of them that are employees at BigB who, they know what we're doing, and they wanted to come check it out and be part of it. And even the ones that couldn't make it, they're quite aware of what we were doing. I'm very sure race day production was at an all-time low here, and our internet service was swamped. But it's been good.
No, that's very cool, and that's exactly where I was circling back to. Like, when you're small town America and you're engaged with all these people, they tend to be all the same people. So I wondered, and I was fairly certain that was what the story was. That these are all guys and that's part of why you've been successful. Correct? That you've known these guys, you've had relationships with these guys. You guys are all vested in each other because it's not at the end of the day or at the end of the week, they get to go home to wherever. It's no, we'll go home, but then on Monday we'll see each other at work, or we'll see each other.
You're exactly right. And, from the outside looking in, I can see how it would kind of look like, an outsider would look at our whole operation here and say, man, 5 years ago, these guys really went at this aggressively and together this world-class team of people and just went and attacked this King of the Hammers thing. And it really couldn't be further more from the truth. It was me with a crazy idea of that looks really neat. I want to try it. And all these people kind of followed. It is really humbling, to be honest with you. And fate brought it all together. So all these people that are involved, I didn't actively go chase any of them. They kind of came and knew what we were doing and seen what we were doing. And everybody kind of just fell into place by accident. Really, it's amazing. We kind of got a well-rounded group of people that everybody kind of has their niche and they've found their niche. Every single year we go to Hammers, it gets smoother and cleaner. This year at Hammers, I didn't say a single word about the pits or loading for the pits or anything like that. We've done our due diligence. We've got spreadsheets and checklists that we've developed over the last couple of years. And, it gets turned over to that group of people and things just happen because they've all done it before and they're good at what they do. And like you said, they're fully invested, man. They want us to do good and I want to do good for them. And it's just been awesome to see the whole thing come together.
And some of it's, moths to a flame or birds of a feather flock together. And people are attracted to doing things that if everyone's on the same page of doing great things, then great things are going to happen. And that's kind of looking at your crew as kind of that. I mean, I would go dig ditches with my best friends if that's what we're going to do. I mean, I know we would have fun doing it because it's with people that you enjoy being around and they enjoy being around you. My group's a lot smaller than that. Like, I don't know how many people enjoy being around me, but yeah, man, that's
now good people are just fun to be around. And like you said, man, you put a crew of good people together and you can pull amazing things off.
Put people on the moon. That's how far that goes. So back to BigB, and we talked about like being technology forward. You guys have a big solar field.
Yep.
Are you carbon neutral or somewhere thereabouts?
We've got a megawatt system. The system has continuously overproduced the plant. So every year our meter gets zeroed out and, to date, we've always overproduced what we use in a year. So it's pretty cool. It's another big undertaking by my dad. That was all his idea. And frankly, I think he was getting bored here and he said, hey, I want to build a solar field. Let's go build a solar field. And he took that under his wing and ran with it and had some tough times. So he got that all straightened out. But it was another situation like that where he couldn't fail. There was too much invested. So he made it work and really dug into it. But yeah, this whole plant is run by solar and pretty cool to be green.
No, absolutely. And has that been a good marketing tool for BigB as well?
It has been. Especially you get into the bigger worldwide companies, they like it. It's cool to see them. They perk their ears front when you talk about your solar field and being completely providing your own power and stuff like that. So it has been a bargaining chip for sure.
No, I think it's really cool. And that's the world that I operate in. I've been in the power business for, since I left college. The ag jobs were not paying what the energy jobs were. And so I ended up moving to Houston and then Enron happened. But I've spent the last few years doing power project development, and some of the stuff we worked on has been some solar work. And when I went through your stuff, I was like, man, look at this. They have a solar field. How cool is that? And how technology forward that is that you or your father is. Now I'm finding out that it was Rusty. Rusty had the vision to say, hey, we're going to do this. Sorry, Josh, I'm going to take the credit away from you. I was about to give
No problem.
But that you guys are, looking forward at the future and being green. I think, there's some level of it is absolutely amazing. Some level of it I think is a little bit crazy, but at the same time, you see the dollars at the end of every single month that you don't have a power bill. At the end of the year, you don't have a power bill. And for a fabrication shop, an energy bill is usually a very significant line item.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're writing a big check every month for electric. So now we wrote a big check for a bunch of years to pay for a solar field, but that's all wrapped up and yeah, it's pumping electric out. So it's been good.
You ready to have the conversation about racing and how you got into it?
Sure.
You want to unpack that? Do a little unboxing over here.
All right.
So as a kid, you were into four-wheelers, and then somewhere in there you ended up involved with line mountain. And I want to get into the four-wheelers a little bit, but man, I have so many questions about line mountain. So
all right. So
throw down.
I'll kind of kick it off from the beginning. So it started with ponies, basically, right? Dad did buy me my first four-wheeler, and it literally, I don't know, it probably took a month or two to have that thing destroyed. And, that was kind of the deal when Dad gave it to me. He said, "Hey kid, here's your first 4-wheeler. I fund this one, any repairs, and thereafter it's yours." And, so I kind of ruined that ride real quick. And, then we were back on ponies, but, so it went from ponies to 4-wheelers to ponies to, now I'm 15 years old. Some of my buddies were older than me, already had their driver's license. A neighbor boy here, Mikey, like you said, you'll hear that name throughout the deal. He's now our pit manager, but he also worked here at the time, had his own car. Him and I are buddies. He lives 300 yards from my house, and we're palling around and doing things. And the Lion Mountain thing is, if you're a local boy in these couple counties, and you're a local young man raised in hell, you know about the Lion Mountain thing, and it's what everybody goes do. For the most part, none of us have anything worth racing at all. We take junkyard stuff that wasn't roadworthy, you patch it together, and you go race this Lion Mountain thing. So I'm sitting at 15 years old. My buddy's 16. We take a junkyard Toyota that's literally far beyond roadworthiness, and we scab a cage in this thing and go to race Lion Mountain. To back up and talk a little bit about Lion Mountain, Lion Mountain is now, this year, they'll be 50 years old. It's their 50th anniversary, which is just awesome to think about. I mean, a racing organization that's been racing in the trees for 50 years is pretty cool. But Lion Mountain was started by a group of brothers, last name Lannick. Dale Lannick is the last surviving brother, and you'll see a lot of connection on this. I have the utmost respect for Dale and his family and what they've done there. Dale's grandsons are Jared and Shane Erdman. Those are our co-pilots. So it's, Jared's my co-pilot and Shane is Dad's. So it's kind of cool to see how intertwined all of this becomes. And as the story gets deeper, it'll just continue to intertwine.
Start to gel.
Yeah, it's pretty rad. But so anyway, the Lion Mountain starts by the Lannick brothers have Jeeps, and, through having a good time, decide, let's see who can make it up the mountain the farthest. They live up against the mountain. The family owns the mountain, and they decide, how far can we make it up the mountain with the Jeeps? Whoever makes the furthest wins. And over the years, it just kind of slowly evolves into, there's a track in the mountain, and let's see who can make it the farthest or the most times. And, every year it just gets a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and, it explodes into what it is today. Today they'll get, between 120-ish competitors will come to that race. Anything from the junkyard worthy stuff to ULTRA4 style stuff. They've done an amazing job at growing with the times. They've got a point system and a class system where you can race anywhere from the A class to the E class. It's really whatever your budget and whatever you want to do. It's been really cool to watch that all go. So I'm back to 15 years old. Me and my wife built this old piece of crap Toyota, and truly went there to see if we could make a lap. And most of their races are 4-lap races. Went there to see if we can make a lap. We probably raced 3 or 4 years and didn't achieve that goal. Every year, just, something stupid would break. We'd come home and find something in the barn to put it back together. And just every year kept getting better. And I think we finally finished a race. And if there was 120 competitors, we probably finished like 90th or something. It was horrible, but we finished the race, and man, that was a victory. So we were done with that thing. It was totally garbage, completely worth tossing, and it goes to the scrapyard. By this time, I am through high school and into college. While I'm in college, my dad got my brother started in go-kart racing. I came out of college and bought a go-kart, did go-kart racing for a couple of years. Got done with the go-kart racing, we got into micro sprint racing. We micro sprint raced for a couple of years. By that time, I'm married, and all the racing stopped. However that happens, I'm not sure, but all the racing stops.
We're not pointing the finger at Lori, but it's Lori's fault.
Right, yeah. Yeah, all the racing stops, and got the family started. Got a house built. Moved on with life. Got all that going, and by the time I was through with all that, we were building race cars again. And about that time was when my dad got involved. Really up to that point, he wanted nothing to do with it. In the off-road racing, the Lion Mountain style racing, he actually said to me when we were building the first Lion Mountain car after the wife deal, he told me too, I was nuts and this was dumb and a waste of time. And maybe 3 months into it, he had one sitting there. He went down to the neighbor's house and bought his old race car. And all of a sudden he figured it was a pretty good idea. And that's kind of where the Rusty and Josh competitive thing all started. We were at Lime Mountain beating on each other's doors, and we didn't care where we finished in the group of the field. It mattered where we finished next to each other, because that's the guy that had to put up with the other guy for the next couple of months, And it just kept evolving, And I'm telling you, and it didn't matter if I finished 98th and he was 97th. My life sucked. And if the shoes flipped, his life sucked. It's just the way it was. And we've always been super competitive, and we just bust on each other to no end. But
where was Skip in all of this? No interest?
Skip had some interest. So he did the go-kart racing, the micro sprint racing. He did the off-road racing for a year or two, but really, no, it didn't light a flame under him like it did with me. And he's into his own things, and he's got a lot of cool projects. He's into the hit and miss engines and stuff too. But no, Skip never really got hook, line, sinker into the off-road racing.
And so the cars that were yours and your dad's, is this the whole Tough Enough and Twisted Intentions?
Yep, you got it.
Okay. So I've seen pictures of them, and as was described to me, like, you're like, hey, Wyatt, go look at the pictures of these and you're going to laugh. These guys totally take junk and put them together, but then they put them together like with really good fab skills, and they're well packaged and they're well prepped, but it's still junk. Is that fair?
Pretty much. Yeah. We had some good years with those cars, man. I sold mine. Dad still has Tough Enough. That's upstairs in the top of the barn. I sold mine to finance the first Miller car. That was my kickstart for the Miller car.
It's all perspective, right? Like at the time, and even when you're racing it, you're like, this is the baddest, best thing I've got out there. But now then, as things evolve and times change, and you look back, you're like, man, I really was kind of racing.
Yeah. Dad still races his. He had his at the 7 miler last year, the old Tough Enough car. And I laughed at him because, he got done with that race and he came out all gimpy and hobbling around saying, there's something wrong with that car. No, Dad, there's not. That's how they've always been. He said, no, I'm telling you, they've never been that bad. Yes, they were. We're just really spoiled now, We had a blast in those cars and did well with them, I won the Lime Mountain Series once with the old Twisted Intentions car, and we were always at the top of the box, man. We had a lot of fun racing those cars over there.
So we're at the point in your racing career, in your racing life, in your racing resume, your pedigree. How do we get from there, racing local there on the 7 miler with the Lime Mountain guys? How did you get from there to racing 4,400? It happens in there somewhere. And I know Eric has raced the Lime Mountain a few times. Is that the connection, or am I drawing a line where there's not a line?
No, that's the connection. It's another piece of fate that changed the course of history, really. If Eric Miller would have never showed up at Lime Mountain, we probably wouldn't be having, I'm positive we wouldn't be having this conversation today. So up to the point where, there was a couple guys, we called them the rock crawlers is what we called them when they started showing up, because they were showing up with vehicles that none of us had ever seen before. We didn't know anything about them. We haven't heard anything about them, but it was Eric Miller and Lou Levy and a couple other guys, but they were racing. That was when ULTRA4 was doing some of their events at the Roush Creek racetrack in Trevorton, Pennsylvania, which is about 20 minutes from here as well. But even though they were that close, none of us heard about them. At least I didn't hear about them. I didn't know anything about them. Through that connection, some of these rock crawler guys started coming over to Lime Mountain, Eric Miller being one of them. And he was the one that, when these guys first started showing up, the whole Lime Mountain crew, myself included, were saying these guys will never beat us here. They're too big. They're too heavy. They're too wide. It's just the wrong car for our course. We're very tight woods. It's just not going to be for them. Well, all of a sudden, this guy starts kicking our ass. And, it raised our eyes, and we're going, man, what is this thing? And who's this Eric Miller clown? And, what's going on? Do a little bit of homework ourselves and find out, well, he's this King of the Hammers racer. And by that time he had already won the Hammers once, and he had a name for himself, and him and the Balducci guys, they were ripping around the country doing this ULTRA4 racing, and, knew him to see him, but by no means were we buddies. We'd ask each other at the tracks and stuff and say, hey, Eric, hey, Josh, how's it going? But what always impressed me about Eric is he wasn't afraid to come down to our level. As far as race cars were concerned, we knew nothing. And this guy was a god at the point. we'd race against him. And frankly, if he didn't break, we couldn't beat him. But if he had a fault, we'd beat him. And we were pretty proud to say we beat Eric Miller. And, we'd pout around with that for a while. But what I always liked about Eric is, at the end of the race, he'd come up to us. I'll never forget the one race we were at Roush Creek Racing. The old Tough Enough and Twisted Intentions car did not ride the greatest. And Eric had broke down and he was sitting alongside the track in one of these little nasty rock sections. And he was watching us go through. And, after the race was over, he came up to us and said, "Hey guys, what kind of spring rates you running?" Dad and I are going, "I don't know, whatever those are." And he's like, "No, but what pounds are your springs?" I really don't know, Eric. Whatever they send us is what's in there. And that's how crude we were back then. We had no idea. So he starts informing us, "Well, how about preload? What kind of preload do you have on them?" I don't know, but whatever's on them. And so he starts laying out the book and saying, "Look, man, you're kind of out to lunch. Let me help you." And he laid it all out and gave us the general formula on you want to work your spring rate off your preload and kind of work from there. And to give you an example, like, I came home from that race and I wanted to play with his theory. So I started playing around with springs and preload and stuff like that. And on the front of that car, I think I went from a 350 over a 375 spring until I was done using his calculation and getting the car sitting at ride height with the correct preload. I think I was 100 over 125 spring. That's how far off I was. Be damn, take it to the racetrack the next time. And she was night and day different. So that's why I always I liked Eric. He wasn't afraid to talk to us on a level we could understand. He didn't come at us arrogant or make us feel inferior. He was a bro. He would talk to us. So now how that all links together is, Eric's coming to Lime Mountain. I know him vaguely. I know he races this King of the Hammers thing. And I go on Google and start checking this out and find out that this King of the Hammers races in California and Johnson Valley, end of January every year. And so I started doing some homework. The race is coming up in maybe 2 months. And I figure I'm gonna go check this out. I'm gonna get plane tickets. We're gonna fly out there and look it over.
So we're like late 2014 coming into the 2015 King of the Hammers, right?
Exactly.
All right.
Yep. So I told my dad, I said, "Hey, I'm gonna get plane tickets and go check out this King of the Hammers thing." And his response is, "Isn't that where that Eric Miller runs there, doesn't he?" And I say, "Yeah, that's where Eric Miller runs. And it looks like a pretty cool race. I'm gonna go check it out." And he's like, "If you're getting tickets, get me plane tickets. I'll go with." So, all right. So I said to my buddy Willie and Caden, which is my cousin and uncle, I said, "Hey guys, because they were very ingrained in our racing program at that point. They helped a lot and spent a lot of time with us." And so I said, "Hey guys, I'm going to go out to the Hammers and check this race out. You want to go with and tag along?" And both of them, they were hook, line, and sinker, man. Let's go look. So we buy 4 plane tickets and a rental car, man. And we had to Johnson Valley, California with not a clue on what we were walking into. I mean, we couldn't have been the more tourist type people in the world. So we get to the Hammertown gate and pay for our wristband, and we go in, and we were that naive. Like, we didn't think we were allowed to go inside Hammertown. We thought it took a special band to get inside there and stuff, So we're completely clueless. And, we thought we snuck in and we didn't. We're sneaking around, and we finally get inside the gates of Hammertown. We're walking around. We have no idea where Eric's tent is. We didn't tell him we were coming. We know nothing. So we get to his tent. We finally find his tent, and I'll never forget, they were in there working on it. It was the year Eric did the backdoor shootout and just nuked everything in the car like 2 days before the race. And they're in there and they're tearing rears out of this car, and a motor and a transmission and radiators and pumps. I mean, the car was just laying in a pile of parts. And I'm going, holy crap, what is this stuff? And, we watched the race, and he had problems that year. I think he was finished second or something like that. But regardless, at the end of that race, I was done, man. I loved it. I wanted to do it. I had to do it. I couldn't die not doing it. And we came home from that race, and I put a for sale sign on my Twisted Intentions car,
Well, I got a question for you. Could you imagine going back today to your 5-year ago self, thinking you're sneaking into Hammertown and being like, bro, in 5 years, you're winning that thing? Can you imagine that? Never. That's
crazy, isn't it? Yeah, it should have never happened, but it did.
No, it did. No, anyway, it did happen for a reason, with good reason. But yeah, anyway, I had to digress there for a little bit and be like, Dude,
Sure, no problem.
That's quite a moment. Like, it's hadn't been many years. This is very recent history, 5 years ago.
It's just 5 years ago. It's been a pretty aggressive schedule, for sure.
Stay tuned. Your talent tank is in full get.
Since 2007, Custom Splice has been the go-to supplier for tactical on- and off-road vehicle recovery equipment. Custom Splice owner Todd Stauffer saw a market where demands for absolutely the safest solutions to vehicle recovery were not being met. Since then, Custom Splice has taken on numerous safety and recovery projects, solving deficiencies in recovery gear for individuals and companies worldwide. What started with synthetic ropes has led to Custom Splice's expansive inventory of not just ropes in countless colors and diameters, but an expansive product line of hooks, fairleads, specialty thimbles, chafe guards, to name a few. Plus the fabrication of Custom Splice's newest addition, recovery rings. Not to be forgotten, don't miss grabbing some Custom Splice soft shackles with your next order, which are also available in many sizes and colors. Even though Custom Splice is a small business in America's heartland of Kansas, you can find Custom Splice employees shipping their products globally on a daily basis. Let's support this small business that supports our community and the talent tank. Give Todd and his crew at Custom Splice a call at 785-856-1844 or go to the web at customsplice.com before you get stuck without a Custom Splice solution.
Now, back to the show.
You guys get back and you follow back up with Eric?
So the first thing I did is I put my car up for sale because I'm hook, line, and sinker. I'm building one of these things. I don't care what anybody tells me, I'm doing it. I had no idea how I was going to do it, but I was doing it. So I put my race car up for sale, and I just finished Lime Mountain. I was the points championship. Like, the worst finish I had all year was second. We really did good that year. And I thought, well, what a better time to sell a car than coming off of a season like that, So I put it up for sale. Lo and behold, some guy bought it. He still has it, and he doesn't do a whole lot of racing with it anymore, but he still has the car and has done well with it. But anyway, I sell this race car, and now I've got this fistful of cash, and I have no idea what I'm doing. So by this point, I have Eric's phone number. I call him up and say, yo, Eric, I'm kind of in a position, racing season is only a couple weeks away, and I just sold my race car. And it was kind of another oh shit moment, because I was that set on doing King of the Hammers. I put my car up for sale, it sold, and then it all kind of sunk in like, oh shit, racing season's in 2 months, and I just sold my race car. I've got nothing. What am I going to do? So I knew Eric was toying with building a production version of his car. Like I said, by this point, Eric and I are really on not much more than a name basis. We know each other's names, and that's about as deep as it goes. I call him up, and I say, hey, Eric, I just sold my race car. I'm building one of these 4,400 cars to go King of the Hammers racing. Where are you sitting on your production chassis? I want to buy one of your chassis. And he's like, man, we're nowhere. I've been struggling. I've been with a couple shops, and nobody's taken a hold of this thing. I don't have the time to invest to it. So I'm really nowhere. I can't sell you a chassis. I'm like, all right. So I was kind of bummed. And I said, well, would you help me? Just point me in the right direction, man, because this is a totally different world than what I'm used to. We figured out the Lion Mountain game and what to make go fast there through trial and error. And it took us a couple of years. We didn't start there fast. It took us a lot of years to figure out what worked. And I didn't want to go through that same learning curve in ULTRA4. So I said, Eric, would you just help me out? Tell me what works. Tell me what doesn't. Geometry, use these parts. Don't use these parts. Just point me in the right direction. And he said, well, yeah, I'd help you anytime, man. Actually, I'll one-up you. Are you interested in building my chassis?
Yep.
I said, well, yeah.
BigB.
That sounds like fun. Sign me up, man. So it really, that whole thing, probably from the outside, looks like it was well more thought out than it really was, because there wasn't a whole lot of thought in it. Eric said, hey, would you build my chassis? And I said, sure, let's do it. Literally probably a week later, the 21 car of Miller Motorsports was sitting in this building. It's kind of semi-stripped down. It had housings under it and everything, but by no means a full-blown race car. And John Balducci, that's where John Balducci comes into the program. So Eric brought the car up, turns us loose. John knows what he wants changed. And that's really the first time I've got to meet John or have a lot of communication with John. But ultimately, John ends up living in my parking lot in a camper for 6 months, 7 months, something like that, while we hash out the original chassis on the fixture table, all of the designing, all the programming changes he wanted made. And John's a very big part of this whole mess, orchestration, whatever you want to call it.
Well, let's even talk about that a little bit, because I was almost, naive to this. I wasn't informed, so I feel like a lot of people aren't. But Miller's Pro Chassis and all the kind of the weldments that go to it, the bracketry, the geometry, all those things, you guys figured out in your shop. He had it figured out, but then did you guys scan that chassis, that original 21 chassis? And now BigB Motorsports manufactures Pro Chassis for Miller and all the pieces that go with it today. Is that fair, kind of?
It's semi-fair. There's some portions of that aren't correct. By no means did BigB perfect that chassis. They had what I'll call a 90% perfect chassis when it rolled in here. John could tell you every tube, nut, bolt, washer on that chassis in his sleep. He was ingrained in that first car when they built it. And John is probably one of the most overthought anal people I've ever met in my life. And him and I got along awesome. And it's another part of this puzzle that, like I said, it looks like everything was super planned out and spent a lot of time. And it was just another one of those situations that it just clicked. John was this guy that was he had his reasonings. Why we literally had a conversation in this shop the one night. We probably talked and argued for 3 hours. And the result of the conversation was we moved a tube 1/4 of an inch. But right. It was a tube that needed moved this way or that way to make it more serviceable, to make it easier to work on. And it was totally worth the move, but that's the kind of guy he is, and just drove all the small details over the top. Ultimately, we ended up designing the same car they brought in here. We made some minor changes on it to make it easier to work on. We did a lot of work on the steering geometry to give it right math and make it turn. I'll never forget the night John started asking me questions about how he set up steering in the old cars. He brought up a word to me that I've never heard in my life, was steering acronym. And I'm going, what did you just say, man? He's like, steering acronym. How do you set up the steering on your old cars? We make them turn left and right. That's as deep as we got. And he looked at me like I was from another planet. And, till it was all done, we ended up doing a lot of math and geometry and changed some things on the steering to make those cars turn better than they did, which was pretty amazing. But really, it was that form of element. We modeled the car completely in SolidWorks. Every component, every nut, washer, bolt, the engine, the drivetrain, everything is fully modeled. There's a ridiculous amount of time into the modeling, but it's proved itself so worth it. So that's kind of how that all evolved. It went from a phone call from me saying, "Hey, Eric, will you sell me a prototype chassis or a production chassis?" to, "I'll bring you a chassis," to his mechanic living in my parking lot. And yeah, till it's all done, we're building Miller chassis and knocking them out.
It's an amazing story. It's really cool how you find synergies in people, and you don't know what they're capable of until you ask, or you don't know what they're capable of until you give them a chance, right? Or you just even open your mouth and have that conversation with them, and you're like, "Holy crap, you do that! Wow, I've been looking for a guy to do that."
Right. Yep. Absolutely.
Sometimes, again, this is back to the racing. This sometimes better lucky than good some days.
I will always take luck over good.
Right.
Always.
When it was, I guess, recounted to me that that's what you were doing, I actually believed that John, the Balducci brothers and Eric were, bending every tube still for the Pro Chassis in his shop. I didn't know. It was just a piece of knowledge that I know is probably out there, probably even public. I just didn't know that you guys were the ones sitting on top of that.
No, and it's really, because I was the outside world and I stepped into this world, and I truly, when I came in, I thought we're building these cars in this, super high tech, crazy garage deal with, all kinds of CNC machines and laser cutters and everything else. And I'll never forget my first trip down there. I walked in, and the place was nice and very clean and everything else, but it was nothing what I expected. What it was 3 guys with an insane amount of passion.
Exactly.
Building something that they wanted to go conquer the world with. And it was a really neat experience. It was nothing like I expected.
I mean, you can look at them and just say the blood, sweat, tears, and just the endless nights of not being able to fall asleep or waking up thinking about something in the middle of the night on those chassis. You can see it there. You can feel it there. I mean, they're something else. When is one of those cars going to come out with chicken wings on it?
Well, I don't know.
I like that pregnant pause. You had a good pregnant pause and a chuckle there. So there's something.
We've been actively chasing it and talking about it. I was pretty much a firm believer that it had to happen, that if we ever wanted to win races on the West Coast again, we needed to do it. I still believe on the East Coast, in the trees and the mud, this little farm tractor is going to do good no matter what. King of the Hammers is the curveball, in my opinion. I've always believed that, and I even believe it more now that we pulled it off. That race is, you just don't know. It is a horribly abusive race. You know, the chicken wings have come a long way. They're getting better. In the rocks, they're getting tougher. But I don't know that you can ever build one as tough as you can a solid axle car. And the other thing I don't think you can ever do in one is turn like these cars. These cars are ridiculous for turning. They look broken when you turn them, and you can just get in the rocks and wiggle them around and do their thing. So I don't know. I don't know if there ever will be a chicken wing. Maybe someday. I don't know.
No, it's a good question. I mean, it's a good question, good answer. Like, you hedge your bet on it, because I'm of the same fruition as we got out of King of the Hammers. I was asked, okay, unlimited budget, who do you have build you a car, and what do you build? And you can race it anywhere. And I was like, man, I mean, you know, I want to race King of the Hammers. I believe the car needs to be a solid axle. Like, for that race, I believe, just because of the endurance, and it's an endurance factor. I'm willing to have my eyeballs rattled out of my head in the desert to be able to get everything else where it's good. But if you can only build one car, I'm like, well, I really want to go to Baja. I really want to race some best in the desert. You know, all of a sudden it's like, well, a solid axle probably is not the car for this guy.
Right. Exactly.
But you know, I guess if money wasn't an option, you know, if it wasn't a factor, then yeah, absolutely. You do the exact same car, one solid axle, one wings, and spicy wings.
It'd be a beautiful system.
Yeah. Right.
And then and one of each for a spare. So you really need like 4 cars.
Yeah, and you guys wadded up a car, right? Didn't you wad up a car a year ago? What was the story on that?
So it's actually the car we won King of the Hammers in this year. That car's got a very colorful history. So my OG car, the original car that John and Eric and I built out of this shop, I've got an incredible amount of sentimental attachment to that car. I said that car I'll die with that car, man. It's never gonna leave my side. I poured everything into that car, and I love it. It was getting to the point I had ran that car 3 years, and I was pretty rough on it. I mean, we did a lot of winning and everything else, but I gave her some tough times, and I didn't want to kill it. So I decided I'm going to build a new car, a total identical duplicate car of my original car. And I'm going to kind of semi-retire the original car and kind of give her the good life and let her kick back. And the new car I'm going to build is strictly a tool. I'm not going to get attached to it. It's strictly going to be a tool. And when she's used up, I'm going to sell it, and we're going to build another one. So I did. We built it, and I didn't cut any corners. We built a really nice car and put everything into it, and took it out there to shock tune. You
took it out to King of the Hammers.
Yes,
2019.
We hauled it.
Right.
Yep, we finished it in the fall of 2018 and hauled it out to King of the Hammers 2019. We unload it. It's brand new. It's literally never seen dirt. I mean, it left this garage and got rolled into our trailer to haul it out to Hammers. We unload it, bebopped it around the desert for 50, 60 miles, just kind of wore the new off of it and liked it, and had a tuning session set up. And these cars always have had an ass kick to them, a little buck. You could get the front end to suck it up, and your nose, you run across it with the back tires and you look at the dirt with your nose. You could tune it out at high speed, and then the car sucked at slow speed. And if you made it really good at slow speed, it had the buck at high speed. So we kind of always just went in the middle and found happy ground and dealt with it. That particular year, we had time available. We had the cars done early. We had the Hammers, and that's our focus. We're going to tune this ass kick out of it. And we threw some wild stuff at it. We were tuning with Wayne, and we threw some off the fence stuff on it. And he's like, I don't know about this. This is kind of crazy. Don't push it. I don't know how it's going to work till we figure it out.
And there's no better person out there to work on, what you're working on than with Alltech Wayne Israelson,
no.
Right? No, there's
Wayne's
nobody
awesome.
Better.
Yeah, you can't paint a better picture than that, man. And he's been involved with the Miller chassis since Miller built the first one. So he's got a huge amount of tribal experience on it and knowledge. And yeah, I love Wayne. So Wayne throws his package in and he says, I don't know how this is going to act. This is really left field. Don't be an idiot. I said, okay. So we go out and found a spot where these cars would normally act up. And I made like a 40-mile-an-hour pass across it at a speed where the old setup absolutely would have at least threw the ass in the air a little bit. And it did nothing. It stayed planted. And me being the genius that I am, I said, well, we found it. It's fixed. I turn around and try making a 70-mile-an-hour pass, and she wasn't ready for that. It stood us up, and I'll never forget. It's the only accident I've ever been in my life that absolutely went in slow motion. You know, I've heard about it. Guys talk about time standing still and everything else. And it did, man. It felt like we were driving on the front wheels for an hour. And when that bumper touched the desert for the first time, the car just went into this crazy cartwheel, and it felt like it was up there for an hour till we landed again. And it just never ended. We were just going, you know, front over back. I have no idea how many times, but we kind of land on the side. I mean, I knew the car was totaled. I mean, the ride we just took, it was going to be in bad shape. You know, Wayne and everybody comes running over, and it was Nate Stowers that was with me at the time, and we were both good. And it hurt my pride. I mean, it took probably one of the prettiest cars on a lake bed and just totaled it in less than 50 miles.
You guys were fine. You guys were 100% A-okay, no injury, no issue.
Yeah, we were good. I mean,
so she did exactly what she was built to do, right?
She did everything she was supposed to do. She, the front clip folded under and a little bit of work on the back, but the center section, the section that keeps you alive, it didn't move at all. It was perfect. So anyway, we hooked a chain to it, drug it behind the trailer, and we joked about it. We were the only ones in Hammertown with our own junkyard out back. You know, it had parts car sitting out back, just completely torn pieces. But we parked it out back, and I had my OG car to pre-run. She was supposed to be retired at the time. I just kind of went over to her and had a talk with her and said, sorry, girl, but we're not done yet. We need to go back to work. You know, went raced that car. She was not prepped for hammers. You know, I took it there to pre-run is what she was intended for. So, you know, between totaling the car, and which I should back up, is 150% my fault. That was just an idiot going too fast, too quickly. I drove way before that car was ready to drive. And if I'd have just ramped up like Wayne told me to, we could have found it. We could have saved the car, but we didn't.
Hey, live and learn, right? You know, one of the biggest things that I know, and I know you are a big proponent of this, learning from your mistakes, right? You'll never, you'll never do that again. And you'll never let anyone around you do that again. You're like, listen, you're not ready. You know, I mean, crawl before you run, walk before you run. Let's do this.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I've learned a lot from making big mistakes, and it's kind of something my dad beat into me at a very young age. Is, you know, number one, don't screw up, kid, or I'm going to kick your ass. But if you do screw up, take the situation you're in and handle it. You're the one that put yourself in that situation. It's nobody else's fault. Handle it. Make the best of it. Do what you got to do. So that's what we did. You know, we put that car behind the trailer and said we'll deal with it when we get home. Drug the OG car out and went and raced hammers and had some problems. You know, unconsciously that whole wreck was in the back of my mind the whole time. I know every time we went over a bump, and I was checked way up. My butthole was puckered, and I didn't want to crash again. So that particular race was our worst King of the Hammers finish ever. We finished 11th. And to be honest, we ran across the finish line, and I was bummed, you know, because that particular year we went there with the best crew I've ever had. We were the most prepared. You know, we went to the lake bed with 3 completely ready to rip 4,400 cars. 2 days in, we had 2 wrecked badly. And we just made a whole lot of work for ourselves that we didn't have to. But regardless, I still had one of the best crews I've ever built. To date, it was the best crew. Went out there, made a mess. We come across the line 11th, and I'm hurt, man. I'm going, this sucks. This sucks.
Man, that's perspective, though. I want to check you on that. I mean, that feels just to finish. There's a lot of people that have never finished, right?
Right.
And you've finished every single time you've entered, which walking on water, I mean, that puts you in an echelon that people can't, you know, fathom. But you finished 11th, and that's your worst finish ever. And that's so I'm like, Josh, I mean, at this point, I'm like,
you're saying pretty much exactly what my wife said to me. Cause you know, we get back to the trailer and I'm like, yeah, we got 11th. And she's like, what is wrong with you, kid? I'm like, well, we finished 11th. We're better than that. You know, I'm not saying that to be ignorant. the team was better. The team deserved better than that. The team was better prepared.
Being hard on yourself is fully within reason, right? It's fully in scope.
And she's like, I thought all you ever wanted to do was finish this race. I said, yeah, but that was before we finished it. Now I want to put it on the podium. I just want to get on that box somehow. And like I said, she was kind of the reality check. And I, sat back and thought about it. And I'm like, jackass, she's right. All you ever wanted to do was finish this race. 11th isn't so bad. And that's when I went, chin up, kid. And I was happy with what we went through and to be able to pull off an 11th. It was a win.
No, absolutely. To come back from the adversity that you guys had earlier in the week, wrecking a car, and just that's a huge hurdle. And to still hold your chin up and finish and within 11th place, that's an amazing feat to get there from where you were mentally a couple days earlier.
Yes, for sure. 100%.
Always perspective, what is that silver lining? And sometimes it does. That's why, just like you in life, certainly with Lori, with your dad, with the guys that you surround yourself on the team, you surround yourself with the best people, the best of the best, right? That are going to help you elevate your game. And yeah, I get that. Yeah. You don't want to let them down, but at the same time, you surround yourself with them so that you can always elevate each other. Like you're never playing from the bottom. So amazing.
What's kind of cool about our crew is a lot of people think we're pretty harsh because we elevate each other, not through, hey, buddy, good job, let's do it. It's, hey, idiot, how'd you screw that up?
Hey, stop sucking.
That's our motivation right there, So we're kind of different on those lines, but it works. It's we're heavy on the ball busting.
That's the Gilbert Sisters school of motivation, right?
100%. That's why we get along with those guys so good. Yeah, they don't cut any slack either.
Oh, no, absolutely zero. So, next chapter, KOH 2020. Man, what a run. So 2019, you come back from 11th place. You were hard on yourself, but really you had a success. I'm calling it a success. I think you're finally there too. But then you knock out the points championship for ULTRA4 Racing for the 4400 class for 2019. You're number one. Number one in the fall, and then you've got a handful of months, less than a handful of months with a big target on your back going into KOH. And let's go. Let's talk through prep. Let's talk through journey. Let's talk through your week.
So I'm going to back up just to 2019 Hammers for a second. 2019 Hammers, we did the 11th place with the OG car, the original car. I wadded the brand new one. We come home from that. We tear the new one down. And it basically took a whole front clip, rear clip, but I wanted to do it right. So we completely tore it down to nothing, put it back on the fixture, proved that the center section stayed, and it did. It didn't move a wink. And we start rebuilding that thing. But I'm kind of rebuilding that thing along at the same time of keeping OG racing. So OG stuck with me for the whole 2019 season. She was supposed to be retired, and she got brought out and had to race the whole season.
And didn't do bad at it, right?
No, she did. She did pretty good. And, the whole way along, we won 2 of the 3 East Coast races with it. And now we're going into nationals leading the points race. By that time, OG did all the work. The new car, which was dubbed BC, is completely back together, ready to race. And I'm taking them both with me to Reno. I made up my mind that I was going to race OG at Reno. Even though BC was the better suited car, BC was going to sit on the sidelines and get a lesson taught to her. Stand here and watch how this is done. Me and the old girl are going to go try to win this championship. And she did, man. She held together, and that was a difficult race for me because I wanted to race hard so bad, but I also had a championship I was trying to win. And I needed it all to work out, and it did. Again, we got lucky. Paul Horschel was on the line there. He could have knocked us out. Unfortunately for him, the cards went our way. He had a bad day, had some mechanical problems, and if it wasn't for that, he probably would have wrapped up the championship. But anyway, the cards ran in our favor. OG and I ran the whole year, and we wrapped up the championship for the team. So we left 2019 Reno Nationals, and we did our annual trip to Johnson Valley to pre-run. So OG was all beat up from racing nationals. The new car, BC, I break her out, and that's where we come to terms on how to get along. And we didn't race. We pre-ran that car for a week in Johnson Valley right after Reno. So beat it around. That's where we got to know each other and really got to get along. Brought them both home from that trip and rebuilt both of them and Dad's car. So we totally rebuilt 3 cars between Reno Nationals and 2020 King of the Hammers.
That's a lot.
It's a lot of work. That's where we're very fortunate to have the crew of guys, because again, if it wasn't for them, we would have never pulled it off. So at this point, the BC car, the new car, was built brand new, totaled in shock tuning, brought home, completely rebuilt again, then took out to pre-running, and basically we consider a pre-run trip to King of the Hammers is basically what we put on miles wise. Till it was done pre-running, it was all shot again. So we brought it home, completely rebuilt it again, and it had never stepped foot on a race course yet. So 2020 King of the Hammers was the first time that car got to dance. She redeemed herself pretty good, because to be honest with you, I didn't like that car a whole lot. She gave me nothing but troubles from the word go. And, we had it in that wreck, and we couldn't see together eye to eye real good, but she figured out how to win King of the Hammers. So she's making a comeback pretty quick. So that's how now we're at 2020 King of the Hammers. OG is finally doing what she was intended to do. She's a pre-runner and sitting back and relaxing. BC is going to be the race car. And of course, then we got Dad and the Happy Pappy. And, there was kind of side bets all over the place. Dad had quite a bit bigger motor than I did. All the guys here at the shop and the rest of the team, they had side bets on who was going to beat who in the qualifying lap. I have to say, got that one. But
you didn't need to hear that from your dad, huh?
Yeah, I got him quieted down for a little bit. But we left the line for 2020 King of the Hammers with the same attitude we leave for every other race. We want to drive fast, but it's being smooth and consistent and always forward motion. You cannot afford to stop for anything. So you got to take care of your car to make it live. And even with all that being said, there's enough things that can take you out. You don't need to flirt with it. But, we left the line what I felt was very calm, cool, and collected. 3/4 of the way or halfway through the first desert loop, we had a flat. So we run tire liners and tire balls inside the liners. We ran as long as we could on the liner, got to a safe place, changed the tire. Up to that point, we really had held our own. We passed a couple cars, but we're really holding on. We were holding better than I thought we could in the desert. So we changed the tire. By that time, Dad got around us and a whole slew of other people. We changed the tire, and at that point, I thought our day. I truly thought that kind of screwed our day. That just that flat was taking us out of any serious contentions for anything. At that point, not even thinking that a win was possible. I was just trying to get on the box, man. That's all I wanted to do. And Jared, my co-driver, he had said to me, "We're not done yet. Just keep running your race. We'll be fine." And that's all we did. We ran smooth. We ran clean. I didn't have any more flats the rest of the day. I didn't have any mechanical issues. The car was flawless there too. It just, I attribute all of that to the shop. All the time and effort we put into our prep is immense. And I think that's, I grant a lot of our success to that, but just ran a really clean, smooth race and, just started picking people off and cruising along.
And people just kept braking. Like as soon as they were listed in they would be announced that, hey, this is the new leader, new race leader.
Right.
Within 15 minutes, they would be out. And it just kept happening.
And man, the one I feel, and I don't know everybody's situation on the guys that broke down. I don't know all the details, but the one that I heard that just, I feel so bad for is Bailey Campbell. From what I understand, a water pump pulley cracked and took her out. Yeah. How do you prep for that, man? That is crapshoot 101. And I mean, she was walking away. She left. She had that thing wrapped up. So, and there's going to be so many situations like that, I'm sure, where it was our day. It's 1,000 things went wrong and we didn't happen to pick up any of them and it got us the win. But it's a crapshoot, man.
It is. And so there you are, like, as we've watched 12 different race lead changes. And like you said, you mentioned Bailey there, but there were, Cam Steele in there for a while. I remember at one point watching the helicopter had you and Cam kind of mixing it up some rock trails. And then you get around him and then, Marcos is, fully in the race. It's you versus him, but he, since he rolled in qualifying, he's way at the back. So he's got this huge time lead on kind of everybody because of where he started on corrected time. And then you're physical lead. You're first on the road. You're coming into back door from the top side. You're dropping in the back door, the first little baby ledge at the top. What went on in your head? You know, like you talked about the slow motion roll as you went end over end in BC. They're shock tuning with Wayne. Was that kind of the same?
180 different. And that was, I just quit driving 100%. That was an idiot move. I watched the video afterwards and I'm going, dude, what were you doing? Not only did I end her wrong, I did nothing about it. And it gave me forever to do something. I just kind of sat there and said, okay, all over. I'm cool with it. I'm done. Both Jared and myself, my co-pilot, when we finally got met up back at the finish line, we were both like, man, what the hell happened? And that happened so fast. And in the car, it seemed like we just drove in there and it was upside down, lickety split. I don't know how else to explain it, but we screwed up. I screwed up bad.
Do you think that, because of the length of the race and just the mental strain, do you think you were truly mentally fatigued on that?
No, I don't. I wasn't tired, and I didn't know we had the race won. I knew we were doing well, and I knew we were in the physical lead. But the guys do. They tell us as little as possible on the radio because I don't like a lot of information, and I end up listening to them instead of driving. The last communication we had was second place, and they never even told us we were in the lead. I got tangled up with Cameron Steele, and I'll never forget it too. When we got around him, Wayne was just getting back in the car. They got done winching, and we had shot the line and got through. And I said to Jared, I said, dude, we just passed Cameron Steele. Can you believe that? And the guy's a legend, and we all dreamed to be Cameron Steele, and we just got to pass him. So that was really cool. And we get around Cameron, and after that, man, every corner I'd make, and I could look back out the window net, I could either see him or his dust cloud. I knew he was staying with us. And I was driving my nuts off trying to stay ahead of him because I knew once we got in the desert, he was going to eat my lunch. So if we had a chance to stay ahead of him, it was going to be in the rocks. So I just drove and drove and drove. And at one point, Mikey, the radio guy, got on the radio and he said, hey, just letting you guys know the second place guy just broke. You can calm down, but don't slack off too bad. Gomez may get you on corrected time. And that's the first time I put it together when he said the second place guy just broke. So I just responded back. I pushed the button and I said, was second place Cameron Steele? Mikey replied back, yes. That's when I knew we were in the physical lead. They never told us anything like that. So he gave me too much information and I put it together that we had the physical lead.
You're a smart fellow, right?
That's probably where I crumbled. So from that point on, I'm going, dude, we're leading the King of the Hammers. And yeah, rookie mistake, drove in there. I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know if I was thinking about getting across the finish line or what I was going to say, because I hate talking on the radio or the microphone anyway. I don't know what was going through my mind, but looking at the video, it's safe to say 100% I quit driving. And whatever was going on in my head was not driving.
It was something else when it happened. Hammertown erupted with just, what?
It made for good TV.
Oh, it absolutely did. And then they got you righted quick and you lickety split got on down into the short course and crossed the finish line. How did that feel crossing?
That was a little touch and go. Another very fateful decision that I made that worked, and it probably shouldn't have. When the whole time we were laying on the side at that little ledge at back door, I stayed in because the game plan was, let's flip this thing over quick and I'm going to take off. Jared, you're staying out. The whole time we were laying there, there was oil running past the window net that was in the dirt. And we do have, the whole cars have the breather system. It's to the rules and the four sides and down and everything else like that. It was the way it was laying. It allowed my engine crank to be draining. And I drained all the engine oil out laying there. I knew we have an accumulator on the car. And I was pretty sure the accumulator was going to be dead because we laid on the side after we rolled. It was on the side for a little bit on the throttle, trying to get the thing to do something, either finish rolling or flip us back in the wheels. So I was pretty sure I was pretty rough on the accumulator oil during that. So anyway, they flip us over. I hit the accumulator switch, and sure enough, there's not a drop in it. My oil pressure gauge doesn't even wiggle. And it was just subconscious split second decisions. I'm still at this point, I'm thinking Gomez is coming, and I just pissed away probably any advantage I had. So I just decided I'm going for it without oil. We had 4 quarts of oil in the back of the car, but in a split second, I decided it wasn't worth the 2 minutes to put the oil in. She'll make it. So I hit the start button, started up again. The oil pressure gauge didn't even wiggle.
No.
And I dropped off a back door and headed for the finish line. About halfway there, I was thinking to myself, this was really, really stupid, because just in my mind, I could picture me getting to like the Ford Arch and the motor just coming apart completely and pieces blown out of the side. And there I'd be sitting and let the whole field come around me. And at that point, I was thinking maybe I should have just taken oil and settled for a second place finish. It's just what was going through my head. But fortunately, she stuck with me. The motor's completely ruined, but I'll ruin a motor for a King of the Hammers win any day.
Absolutely. No. You cross under the start finish line, they flag you, you get the checker, you pull off, and then the wait begins for Marcos. How did that go? What went on in your head during that lull?
And I truly, truly mean it. At this point, to even be in the contention for a lead, to even be, hey, this guy may have won, that was good enough for me. I was pretty confident at that point I was getting my podium, and that's all I had ever dreamed for after the point of winning the race, of finishing the race. So just to be in contention that we may be a winner, that was enough. As far as the time, the 15 or 20 minutes or whatever we had to wait there, that went by at a snap of a finger. I mean,
that was my next question, was how fast or how slow?
It seemed like an instant later, it was all figured out. It was just, everything's going a million miles a minute, and, everybody's congratulations. And, Eric pulled in and I got to talk to him and Robbie, and there was enough going on that the time flew by before I could even know it. So that wasn't a problem.
Oh yeah. Eric looked like he was on a pogo stick. He was bouncing around from car to car, up and down, hugging, high-fiving. I mean, Lee was there with the baby. I mean, I don't think he could have been happier. I don't think there was a more proud or happier person there about your win than him.
No, it's been, our relationship has been awesome. Off the track, we're best friends, and we do anything for each other, any condition, anywhere. On the racetrack, we certainly just want to beat each other. But same deal. I mean, I've taken second place to Eric already, and it's awesome. It's awesome to see two cars that are super identical with two guys that drive, I think, extremely identical. How consistent those two cars can be all the time. So it's fun.
No, it's kind of like the planets and the stars align on that.
Yeah. Yep.
So here you are. Jason Shearer has handed you the scepter. Dave Cole has announced you're the man. King of the Hammers, 4,400 winner. You drive across the stage. You're the guy. You go back to PA. I can see in the background, and that's what the people that listen to this show do not get to see, right? They don't get to see the video of you're sitting in the shop. There's two pro chassis. What would you say? They're about 50% torn down, each of them, maybe more?
They're both missing their engine, transmission, transfer case, driveline. Really, the only thing that's in them right now is a little bit of plumbing and electrical. Other than that, they're completely stripped.
They look pretty gone. So.
Yeah. Yep. And that's part of our program too. I pride ourselves on the prep that this team does. And that was another thing I've always said, if I can't do it right, I don't want to do it. So we take these things to every race. I mean, they're 100%. They could race hammers at any point. It's one of the biggest things for the continued success of this team. Is just race prep, man. Just hammer. And you're right. A lot of people don't see the amount of work. A lot of guys think you just take it home, you give it a wash job, and you maybe change the motor oil and off you go. And it really couldn't be further from the truth. These things come pretty much completely apart every single race. And, if there's something that's not 100%, you fix it. 99% isn't going to cut it. And we've always just stuck with that.
Well, where I was going with that was, the Hammers was really barely over a month ago. I'm sure you celebrated, but immediately you guys get back to PA and you're back in the shop. You're back cranking it out. You're back stripping it down. You're back making the cars back new. No rest for the wicked, right?
Right. The BC car, I knew I had that car, that motor nuke coming across the line. That car wasn't home for 4 days and the motor was out at the engine builder already. So, it came back, washed it, tore it down, engine out, and off it went. So it's forever, man. And it's the ULTRA4 Racing, especially if you're going to do the whole, a series east or west and hammers. There really isn't an off season, because you would think, well, winter you get to relax. Well, no, all winter you're rebuilding to go to hammers, which is in the middle of winter. And as soon as you get home from Hammers, you got to start all over again because the next race is in a month or two. And there's just no off season. It's constant.
It's a good challenge, though. And clearly you've risen to that occasion on numerous occasions at this point over the past 4 years to constantly be putting in that work. And you're right. The people don't see that. They see when you're at the race, they see you during the race, and they see you slightly after the race. They don't see the countless and hundreds and thousands of hours just spent toiling away on this chassis chasing this dream. And you've chased a dream and you continue to attain it and meet it and reach it and exceed it. Pretty badass. And so when anyone looks at me and says, "Hey, who's Josh Blyler?" I'm going to say, how do you not know who Josh Blyler is? I mean, that's serious. Like, how do you not know who this guy is? And, now we've got you on the record for it. So what's next? What's next for you?
I've been asked that question a whole lot. They're like, well, now you won King of the Hammers. What's your next thing? What are you going to go do next? And, we're going to, my game plan has still stuck. I'm having a blast. The rest of the crew's having a blast. I get to do this with my dad. We're going to do this as long as we're having fun or as long as we can afford it, whichever one comes first. Like I said, we're having fun. I don't know what's next. We're going to ride this train maybe forever. I don't know, but we're going to run it till it's no longer fun or the crew's not interested anymore. And we're just going to keep sticking with this as long as we can.
Hey, I support you winning again. I support you winning even like maybe 2 more times. Once you've won 3 times, I don't know if I'm going to be able to support you. I'm going to probably have to start
fair enough.
Supporting the new younger, the next guy who no one says they've heard about, but has won the points championship for a couple years in a row. I'll be like, that's the guy I'm after. I'm giving you a hard time.
Yes. Yep. I'm with you 100%, man.
Well, hey, Josh, did we cover kind of everything about your story that you wanted to get off your chest and kind of get out there?
I think so.
You covered all the bases for me, man. I had an absolute blast going down this rabbit hole with you and really telling your story and the people that came forward and were like, hey, who was this guy? And like, no, you should know this guy. This guy's should be a household name. Well, now you are a household name. Now they have something and some color and some dialogue to go behind that. I hope you gain some fans by people just listening to you. You're a super likable guy. I love some of your sayings, some of your nuances. Dude, very nice to have had you on the show. Thank you for agreeing, and congratulations, man.
Yeah, no problem. It's everybody. Well, it's no secret. I don't like the interviews or the speeches or anything like that. It's not my cup of tea. It's not why I'm doing this. It's cool, and I'm glad you guys are interested. It's just, I am uncomfortable with it. So if hopefully you can do something with it.
You fooled me, but I had been told that about you, that you are kind of that way and reserved. And man, I hope I brought it out of you, because I really felt like we've had I've had a good 2 hours with you. So I hope everyone that listens, they have a good 2 hours too, and they feel like they're on their commute to work and they're sitting there listening. They're like, man, that was fun. I like Josh.
I hope you're right, man. I hope you're right.
All right. Well, hey, we'll let you get back to it. But Josh, thank you. Congratulations and good luck on 21, man. I know you guys and what the effort that BigB puts into everything that you guys do it 100% and then some. I have no doubt you guys are going to be close to a repeat this year on points and probably close to repeat again at Hammers and 21. But man, awesome. Keep it up. Don't stop.
Thank you, Wyatt. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, we are out. I'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, Custom Splice Off-Road Recovery Gear. For all of your off-road recovery needs, reach out to these guys, customsplice.com.
Thank you for listening and taking a dive into the Talent Tank. Please like and subscribe on Instagram @The Talent Tank or our website, thetalenttank.com.